Today's episode is brought to you by Musical Theater Radio's merch store. Looking for that perfect gift for someone or just want to treat yourself to some great musical theater themed merch? Head to musicaltheaterradio.com and click on the All Things Theater button on the homepage and check out all the different designs available. And now, today's interview. Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanoff. Today is another Discover a New Musical edition where you, the listener, and me, the host, get to learn about a new show together. In the musical Fifth Avenue, Max and Willie are longtime business partners and friends. They keep chasing the American dream, but getting caught up in other people's schemes. Not anymore. Now they're going legit. How? By opening a nightclub in the West 40s so classy patrons will think they've come to the East 50s. What could go wrong? Today, to tell us a little bit about the show, our composer and co-lyricist Daniel Seidman, co-lyricist and book writer Susan Crawford, and producer R.K. Greene. Hello to the three of you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Fantastic. Now, before we get into the show, I want to get to know you guys a little bit better. And obviously, the listeners need to know who you are. So I always ask for a 30-second bio. So, Susan, we're going to start with you. Who is Susan in 30 seconds?
Well, I listened to a few of your podcasts beforehand, so I'll just focus on my theater life. So started acting at 13, started writing plays in my 20s. Was part of my first production in my 20s that I thought would launch us through that particular play. But then it didn't. So then I continued writing. I studied with Arthur Kopit and John Guare in graduate school. And then, as I heard through the two podcasts I heard earlier, we had a pandemic project where Dan and I pulled out this musical, which we had written back when we met in our 20s and early 30s. And here it is, 2 years later.
Nice. Daniel, yourself, who are you in 30 seconds?
Okay, well, I'll do a little bit of a kaleidoscope view of myself. My father was a songwriter, and he took me to see the show Oliver on Broadway when I was a kid, and I was mesmerized by the show. I was a middle-class kid with nice parents, but I thought I wanted to be an orphan in London after I was done watching it. I recently saw the encore version, and I'm still charmed by it. By the time I was 12, I was playing in the Cafe Wha during the day for $5 a day and all the ice cream sundaes I could eat with my band. And at 15, I toured the U.S. and Canada with Chubby Checker playing the Hammond organ. I did study composition at Berklee School of Music. And after college, my cousin, who was a Broadway producer, got me a job running the switchboard in the Shubert office. So I got to see all the shows, and I started writing one, and this one, as a matter of fact, and I recorded it. I gave it to one of the in-house producers, and he invited me up to his office above Shubert Alley, and we listened to the whole thing, and he told me I should workshop it. At the time, I decided to go to graduate school instead, but this production we did at Don't Tell Mama, I consider the workshop that he was recommending all those years before.
Just to go off on a tangent for 1 second, how many Sundays can you eat?
Oh, I could eat a lot of sundaes. They were fabulous. They're really classic New York sundaes. I mean, it'd be hard to find them that good now. You could, I think, but.
Nice. Okay. RK, 30 seconds. Who are you?
Okay, well, my name is R.K. Greene. I use my initials. I'm originally from Seattle, School of Drama at the University of Washington, migrated east, young man, and then founded the Storyline Project, of which I'm the executive director. And Storyline Project is a commercial theater production company. And we started developing new work back in the early 2000s, have produced revivals, everything from Room Service to new shows like Cougar the Musical or Peter and the Starcatcher, and most recently Harmony on Broadway.
Very nice. Very nice. I'm curious, when you were growing up, Susan, I'm going to start with you again. Were you the black sheep of the family, or are you a musical theater type group?
So, no, I wouldn't say it was the black sheep of the family. I don't know what my siblings would say, but we had a Shakespeare festival in our town, and that's what I joined at 13. And my brother, who was 4 years older than me, had been in it for several years. So I had that as a model of what was going on in one's teen years in the town I grew up in. And from there, studied acting in college and was I was in musicals in the town that I grew up in, but I never got comfortable singing by myself. So I can sing with a crowd, but didn't perform in them, with leading parts.
Yeah. Daniel, yourself, did you stick out in your family, or you said your dad played piano, I believe, right? So,
He was a songwriter,
oh,
and it was a joy. He used to write his songs for commuting on the train into New York City, and then play them for us. And my parents were really big music lovers, and so and shows, Broadway shows, and so we knew all the lyrics. We could all sing all the lyrics and like that. So we were sort of basted in that stuff.
nice. RK, yourself?
Oh, my family were not involved in the arts whatsoever. Uh, so in one way, you could say I was the black sheep, but my parents really didn't know what to do with this really active kid. I had my own ideas, and they just kind of let me do it. And that led me to being an actor as a young kid. Act Theater in Seattle was founded in 1965, and I played a young New York City street waif who was brought into a couple's home because they had lost a child, but had kept the memory of the child alive to a war buddy who was just coming to Europe and going to visit them, and they needed a kid to show him. It was Who'll Save the Plowboy by uh, Gilroy, Frank D. Gilroy. So it is. Anyway, so and that just went from there.
Nice, nice. Well, now that we know who you are, I'd love to know how the parallel lines of Daniel and Susan's life, intersected. How did the two of you meet?
Well, I had that job at the switchboard, and at some point I needed to expand it a little bit. So they gave me a job in the mailroom at the Barrymore Theater, and the show was romantic comedy. And that the head of the mailroom said, "Oh, you're going to like Susan," which turned out to be prophetic. So we've been married for 40 years. So we do, so that's that.
So let's talk about the show itself, Fifth Avenue. What was the impetus for writing it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was always interested in history and I'm a jazz pianist. And my own family's history is my great grandparents and grandparents came from a part of Poland that's near Austria, and they were small business people. And they came in the 1920s to the United States, and and you sort of think about, well, what's that like? The go-go 1920s and Prohibition and all that. And I have a good friend who wrote a book about the rise and fall of the Jewish gangsters, because a lot of these people who came in didn't have the language. They were barred from medical school and all these things. So some of them ended up, working in prohibition like ways. And a lot of what you see in the movies seems to be, these psychopaths who are violent and all that. But a lot of them really believed in the American dream of, the ideal of business. And that's kind of what our show is about. People who believe in it, who want to make it in America, but it's not so easy. As we all know, business is not easy, and it never was easy, right? So this is about people who get caught up in other people's schemes, often because the other people provide the capital to get them started.
Nice. So the two of you obviously write together. How does that work for the two of you? Like, does it work music then lyrics, or lyrics then music? The book inspires it. How does that work for the two of you?
Yeah, I'm interested in this answer too.
I'm gonna let Susan start on this one.
Well, when I came in on it, which is when we met, he had already written almost all the songs that we currently have. Some have been added, and had written lyrics to them that, shall we say, needed some work. And there was the bare bones of a story. So that's what I ended up doing, was coming up with a plot line and a storyline, to use RK's term and the name of his business. And I did a lot of research about Prohibition and the 20s in general, and hit on a certain character in the research, a real life person who was always opening nightclubs and stocking them with everything from the glassware to the performers and so on. And so one of the characters is loosely based on him. I did want to steer away from any of them being hardcore gangsters. I was more interested in the business aspect of it. One of my rent money jobs was to write market reports, so I was very steeped in the business world during that period, and that all stayed with me because all my plays have a certain skewing, looking at the business world one way or the other, and they're all comedies. So that's how my role developed and evolved. And then together we went through each song, working on the lyrics, sometimes being in the same room and sometimes passing paper back and forth, working on it, and then the other one would work on it. Yeah. And when we came back to it during the pandemic, that's how we continued to work on the lyrics.
Very cool. So tell us a little bit, I guess, about the production history of the show, when it started and where it's been going. And I guess this is when RK will get into the story. But yeah, when did it start, and tell us the progress?
Yeah, so we got somebody referred us to True, Theatrical Resources Unlimited, and it's been a real lifeline for us in so many ways. We love True. And we went through some of their, speed dating and all the programs they had and so on. And then we decided that we were going to do this production at Don't Tell Mama, which was like a live workshop for 8 weeks. It was supposed to be 6 weeks. We extended it. And we got a good crowd going there. We got some nice reviews. So we were fortunate enough. Actually, Susan had seen RK maybe at one of these True events, and she asked Bob Ost, hey, you think maybe he would mentor us? And he was very generous and very kind to us, and really we wouldn't have been able to do this. He really helped us to put it together and answer our questions. And then when it was over, we all decided to work together.
Nice. RK, tell us, what drew you to working with them and the show?
Well, it's interesting that they had said that they had scheduled performances at Don't Tell Mama, which is a 50, 60 seat cabaret venue in New York City, quite famous. Lots of very wonderful things come out of there, but it's this tiny little stage, and it's got a grand piano that takes up a third of it. And they wanted to do the whole show, or 90 minutes of it, in this space. And so Susan and Dan had to edit the story a bit, trying to keep it together and work as a story, but as a way to kind of test the audience and test the audience response to the show, and what worked, what didn't work. And I had done a couple of years before, we developed Cougar the Musical as a cabaret act with Donna Moore. And we would, do the show maybe a couple times a month and try out different bits, try out different songs, work on different storylines that were there. And that, so I thought it was a really useful tool to be able to develop something new using that, because not only were we getting a little bit of money from the gate, people paying to see it, but also we're getting audience response to things that we were in the midst of changing. So with that experience, I said, well, if you're going to go do that, let's see if I can help, maximize this experience for you down at Don't Tell Mama. And indeed, we were very pleased to see that we got some really good reviews, that even people came to review it, and that it was extended. And we got a lot of input from that we then were able to translate into a production, really a presentation, a 29-hour workshop at the York Theater. And I thought of the York Theater because the topic seemed to fit into some of the things they would do. One, it's a musical, but two, it's, a historical thing, and it's about New York. So, and they went for it as well. And we did that in November, actually presenting the entire piece in a reading situation. And we added a saxophone to the music instead of just having a pianist, because that would influence the jazz feel of this jazz musical. And after that, we then went into the studio, we recorded the entire piece, so that we now have an asset to work with and present to other people. But, now Susan and Dan are looking at the story again, kind of processing the feedback that has come, and we'll present it to the York again for a future series, and maybe to a couple other theaters, as we're looking to get this theater out and about.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on the Mama and getting it to New York and getting that a workshop as well. I'm always curious because as a writer, we write stuff and we live it and it's in our heads. But once it's in front of an audience and it's on stage, you never know how it's going to react. Was there anything during the Mama run or the York workshop that surprised you, that you went, oh, I didn't think the audience would react this way, or it's something like that? Was there anything surprising?
Dan, Susan?
One thing that surprised me is how fast moving it is. And I had to help one of the actresses with a costume change at like midpoint of the show. And I'd be engrossed. I'd be watching from the back and I'd be engrossed. And suddenly she was coming at me to have her dress pulled off and the other one put on. So I was happy about that because it needs to move quickly. And also early on, even before we knew we were going to do the Don't Tell Mama run, we had a table reading. And one of the people there works for True. And he has a wonderful laugh. And he basically laughed really loud, not because we asked him to. That's just what he's like, in all the right places. So I felt very affirmed by that also. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that surprised me. If anything comes up, I'll pipe in.
Well, as a side note to that, you write the songs, and sometimes they just come right out, and they're nice and easy. And was there ever a song also that just drove you insane? You worked on it and you couldn't figure out how to make it work. I'd love to hear about the process of the easy one and the one that just drove you crazy.
I went back and looked at some of the original stuff, and some of those songs, Susan said, we cut them. There are songs that are not in this show that were created, and some of them, and they've all evolved. Especially the lyrics have evolved quite a bit, and the music. So the process is evolves over time, and some come unbidden, and some you work on really hard, and then in the end, it's like, well, it's not really going to work, is it?
And one of the things we did to prepare for Don't Tell Mama, we had to cut 30 minutes out. So some of that was the intermission, but there was a particular song that I never especially liked. And I said, we could just sing the very opening of that and then move into the scene. And that's what we did for the show, for the cabaret version. And then when we came back to prepare for the York presentation, we changed the song a lot, not in terms of what the music was or what the lyrics were, but we opened it up so it was sung not by one person, but three characters, and coming in with their own points of view about the situation they were in. I won't say what it was, and, except it was going on in jail. But beyond that, I don't want to give too much of the plot away.
No worries. So where's it going from here? I know, and you talked a little bit about preparing for maybe another run at York and other theaters, but where do you see this going? Like, what kind of theater company, if they're listening, might be interested in this?
Well, from my point of view, I mean, it is a relatively small cast. There are 7 people plus music directors or whatever small combo. So it's open to some smaller theater venues. Doesn't need to have a Broadway size 2,000 seat, Broadway theater to be able to do. And so that opens up a lot of things. So regional productions, even in smaller theaters or the larger theaters that are looking for new work, looking for a new story, a story that is familiar yet but different, and talking about prohibition and the idea of trying to make it in the United States, and these are immigrants coming in that are serial entrepreneurs, and how do they make it, so that's one thing. Now we're also submitted it to NAMT, NAMT, and so we'll be looking at well, hopefully someone will be looking at that. And then, we're introducing it to other theater companies around. Goodspeed, for instance, is one of the ones that we have been doing. I don't know if you know any up in Canada that are interested in prohibition in the United States.
You know what? A good show is a good show. Doesn't matter where it's set, right? So,
Plus, Canada supplied a lot of the alcohol that was being.
well, you're welcome for that. Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations to all of you on where you took it to where it's going and all that. How do people learn more about it? The websites, the socials, anything that people can, check out to learn more about the show.
There is a website for the show, fifthavenuemusical.com, and it has a lot of stuff about the musical, including some of the songs. And after we did the York presentation, we went right into the recording studio and recorded our reading. And so it's the cast, the original Don't Tell Mama cast singing, and we fell in love with the cast. I mean, the ones from Don't Tell Mama were also in the York presentation. Everybody came back. Everybody wanted to do it, and they all get along very well. And it's a wonderful spirit to it. So we captured it. We captured what we did at the York in the studio, and some of that is now available on the website.
Fantastic.
I just also point out that one of the reasons we landed at Don't Tell Mama was there was a point the summer before, after we had the table reading, where our friend from True was laughing even at that in all the right places. And that helped inspire us to go ahead. Not that the way the script stood, it was ready to go get on its feet and work on its feet instead of to keep rewriting. And in the course of that summer, I was taking different workshops, and cabaret contract was mentioned as one of the equity contracts. And our pianist works at Don't Tell Mama. She sings there twice a week. And she had, I think, already mentioned possibly doing it there, but I didn't know about the cabaret contract per se. And we realized for almost the same amount of money, between a 29.5-hour reading where the actors are holding the script and it's supposed to be doing it in front of music stands with no blocking and no costumes and so on and so forth. It seemed like for about the same amount of money we could do this production. It went bit over, but it was worth it
Yeah.
because we just got so much more out of it to see it fully staged.
I must say that RK also brought along a director, on Andrea Androsakis, and she's a choreographer also. And now the stage at Don't Tell Mama is tiny, as RK said, and the grand piano takes up a third of it. And she managed to have them moving and have the show, really come to life in a very small amount of space. So, and the other thing that was very interesting about Don't Tell Mama is that it is like a classic speakeasy from the 20s. It has a bar in the back. So as the show is being performed, they're making drinks in the back. And this is what the speakeasies were like. They had small stages. They sat about 60 people, and they had a bar in the back. So it really turned out to be, a nice simulation of the whole experience of opening a nightclub in the 20s.
Very cool. Well, congratulations to all three of you on getting the show on its feet and where it's going. And I look forward to seeing, what happens with the show in the future. But I'd love to hear, just before we go, from each of you. Do you have anything you want to promote? Do you have anything else? I know you're working on this, but is there anything else you're working on that you want to promote to people? Susan, I'll start with you.
I have a play called Dollars to Donuts, which was in the Dream Up Festival at Theater for the New City 2 years ago. And I'd like to get that out there for anyone who wants a comedy that's not a musical. And I also had a one-act play done at the Chain Theater in one of their festivals 2 years ago. So those are out there being circulated as well.
Nice. Daniel, yourself.
I'm really sticking with Fifth Avenue. I mean, it's a heavy lift, and it's a big challenge, and it's a very exciting challenge. I must just say one more thing. Like, when I saw the actors rehearsing for the first time, and having them sing the songs, I was so enchanted, and having them say the words. And I realized, in school, they have us read Shakespeare. It's so flat or whatever, that's not how to do it. You got to see what you have on the stage. You got to bring it to life. So the theater is, when it's great, it is so exciting. And I've really been thrilled to be part of this.
Fantastic. And RK, have you got anything in the pipeline?
Oh yeah, I've got a few things. But in addition to Fifth Avenue, and we have script, we have the music, and all that's available, of course. I'm working on the new Douglas Lyons and Ethan Pakchar musical called Beau, Beau. And there's also a couple of things floating around. One is an interesting thing that came out of the Pacific Northwest called Wild Man of Winoochee, that I'm looking to help kind of move along, which is a really interesting little story about the turn of the last century in Washington State. So
awesome. Well,
and yeah, you can find things from me on my website, storylineproject.com.
Perfect. Well, I look forward to hearing more about the show in the future, all the other shows you've got, RK, as well. And congratulations. Yeah. And if you got something else to promote there, when the production gets a little bit bigger and you got another one, let me know and I'll promote the heck out of it, because we got to all support each other with these new musicals, because yeah, it's not easy, as we all know. So
Thank you so much for having us on your show.
Yeah, thank you. This is a pleasure.
No problem. Well, thank you. All right. Well, we were just speaking with Susan and Daniel, the creators of the musical Fifth Avenue, and RK Greene, one of the producers of it as well. Tune in next week as we speak with another guest or guests about their life, love, and passion that is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.